It was a bright, humid day when my husband and I pulled off the highway toward the Sigatoka sand dunes. We were supposed to pick up my mother and a friend from the bus stand later that afternoon, so we told ourselves we had plenty of time. I had come here once as a child with my whole family, 15 people in total, and I wanted to show him the place I remembered. Long, wind-whipped ridges, a bench of sun-bleached wood, the way the sand tasted like salt on the air. We were strangers to the area now. Our phones had little reception, and our map was a rough scrap. When we arrived, it was already past 2. The parking lot was nearly empty, the usual hikers gone by midday. We signed the clipboard at the visitor desk name, emergency contact, time in, and set off toward the loop. Back then, with my father, I'd taken a simple path out and back. This time I felt reckless. "Let's do the loop," I said, and he laughed and followed. Climbing the dunes was slower than it looked. Each step sank in the hot grain. Each breath was thick with sea air. From the crest, the view stole my words. A rolling desert of sand that ran like a pale ocean. We took too many pictures. We wandered and wandered until the sun felt lower, until the edge of the sky went copper, and we noticed time had slipped away. At 4 o'clock, a small painted sign pointed into a swaying green ribbon of foliage. Jungle. Our hearts kicked. The path into the trees promised shade and a way back. Inside, the world changed. Sound thinned. The only noise was the soft rustle of our souls on dry leaves. It ought to have been peaceful. Instead, I felt watched, the hairs on my arms prickling. Then we came upon them. Coconut shells, hollowed and carved, tied with rope to the trunks of every coconut palm. They hung at head height, swaying faintly, even though the air was still. At first, I thought they were nurseries for birds, or some strange local craft. Close up, the shells were arranged like bodies, arms and legs of braided rope, knots where a throat would be. Many were scored with scratches that looked eerily like letters. The sight stopped me cold. We held each other's hand as tight as we could. We kept walking because staying still felt more dangerous than moving, and because leaving was the only option. The path stretched and stretched. The sun slid further toward the horizon, and the shadows in the palms lengthened into teeth. As we walked, a whisper threaded through the leaves, not words exactly, more like the memory of names. My name, a child's giggle, an odd, hoarse laugh that was not ours. I told myself my brain was playing tricks, that the dunes were full of tourist stories and wind-made echoes. I had read about people getting lost here, about bodies found in the summer heat. The fact settled like a stone in the pit of my stomach. At 4:30, we pushed through a thicket and heard a sound ahead, metal on wood, a dull, regular hammering, like someone building a roof. The sound pulled at something old inside me. Relief, the very human recognition of other people. I let myself relax for a second, and I remember thinking, finally, we'll be okay. The hammering ceased as soon as we stepped into a clearing. The air turned cold, and the sky over the dunes dimmed unnaturally fast. The coconut shells at the clearing's edge were different now, newer, slick with some dark stain, and one of them swung lazy and slow, as if an invisible body inside had only just been freed. That was when the whispering sharpened into a chorus. They were not calling me back. They were calling to me, beckoning. A shadow moved between the trunks, wrong in the way it cut the light. Something tried to step into our path from the cover of the palms. It wasn't a person exactly. It was air made of people's gestures, a collage of lost tourists, mouths open in a scream, fingers reaching, faces all too familiar and not at all mine. My husband pulled me behind him. Our speed quickened to a run, sand throwing up in furrows at our feet. Panic can propel you in surprising ways. One of us saw a faint trail of old footprints in the sand that didn't match our own, older, half blown by wind, but still legible if you watched for the left-right rhythm. The prints led away from the circle of palms, arrowing toward the coast and the line of scrub that marked the parking lot beyond. I don't know why we trusted them. Maybe because, in that moment, the only thing clearer than fear was the stubborn, ridiculous hope of survival. We followed the ghost prints. Behind us, the whispering rose into a keening that tried to drag at our ankles and tie our legs down. The coconut shells clacked against the trunks like teeth. Something brushed my shoulder, a whisper of heat. And for a second, I thought we would be pulled back into that stillness. But each footfall forward loosened whatever hand had found us. The path opened as if someone had parted it for us. We burst into the parking lot with sand in our shoes and our hearts beating like hammers. The lot's gates swung shut behind us with a clang that felt like finality. On the dashboard of our car, a single small coconut shell sat upright, its surface scrawled with a crude, hurried carving. 2 initials, mine and my husband's, and a short word that read like both warning and benediction. Leave. We drove away as the last light died, and the dunes behind us seemed to fold themselves back into a bland, harmless silhouette. Later, when the daylight and reason returned, we would tell ourselves we had simply been frightened by the isolation, by the uncanny arrangement of shells. We would tell ourselves the hammering was a coincidence, the prints a trick of wind. But the heaviness of that carved shell on my dashboard, its edges still gritty with sand, we kept. I pinned it above my dresser at home like an ugly, improbable trophy. Years later, I read about the dunes in a travel forum. An old warning passed down that the sand keeps a ledger, that sometimes visitors come to rest, and their names are whispered on the wind. Bodies are found, the post said. Yes, some of those posts were careful to add, because people strayed alone, and the place took them. I never learned whether those posts were superstition or a record. All I know is this: the dunes wanted something of us that afternoon. Something reached and moved and nearly had us. We left with our lives and an unshakable sense that something older than maps and tourists had watched us, chosen to let us go, and marked the moment with a simple shell that said plainly to never return.